Yeah, I read a book about hypnobirthing, and
Oh,
there was just something about that. I didn't end up uh, ultimately for me, the method didn't really work, but there was a book that I read that just it explained the anatomy and physiology of birth, and something about that totally clicked in my mind, and I was like,
mm,
I can do this. Like my body
mhm,
is made to do this, and I don't need medication or like it just made it seem approachable. And prior
mhm,
to that, I would say I was terrified. If you had asked me even like 2 years ago, would you ever consider a home birth? I would be like, absolutely not.
mhm.
Are you crazy? But it just totally shifted my perspective learning about what the body goes through during that process.
Hey, you're listening to Empowered Births at Home with me, Esmeralda, as your host. I am a mama of three, fellow home birther, and doula. I am completely obsessed with birth, more specifically, home birth. And this is the podcast where women come to share their home birth stories, along with the journey that led them down the path to home birth. Whether you're pregnant, planning a home birth with your first or fourth baby, or even is just someone who is a complete birth nerd like me, this is the podcast for you. Let's get right into this week's empowering home birth story.
Hi, so my name is Sam. I live in central Massachusetts with my husband, my son, and we have two cats. I'm staring at one right now. We're in our room here, and a dog, and we love to garden here. And yeah, so a little about me, I guess. I'm a personal chef by trade. And when I became pregnant, I knew that I wanted to be home full time with my son, and we were able to do that, which has been really great for him and for me the last 10 months. So, a little background there, I guess. I own my own business called Root to Table, and the last month or so of my pregnancy, I decided to sort of table that and be home and prepare myself for birth and just kind of relax and settle in.
Mhm.
But I guess a little like fun fact about me or something. I don't know. I went to art school for ceramics. I used to teach classes a little bit here and there, but not so much. Haven't really practiced that anymore. But food had kind of filled that creative void for me. I guess I can kind of like jump into a little bit of what I'm hoping to go into. So my birth experience, and I had a previous pregnancy prior to the birth of my son, and that pregnancy that really shaped everything for me. It was a miscarriage at 9 weeks, and my experience there really led me to home birth and that route and working with a doula and just kind of changing my perspective a whole lot. So that's how everything started for me. And that
Mhm.
was a couple years ago. And I was
Yeah.
devastated, of course. It's just really, really hard. And it showed me what that experience could look like in a hospital setting.
Mhm.
So I'm very, honestly, very grateful that I had that miscarriage experience to lead me to this education and experience with my son because it was ultimately very positive. Although birth
Mhm.
is hard work
Yeah.
and it's labor. So
Mhm.
it was difficult, but I think if I hadn't had that experience, I would never have had a home birth and worked with a midwife. And I'm just grateful overall,
Mhm.
even though it was really difficult.
Yeah.
So,
It is really unfortunate that usually most of the time what happens before going to like the home birth journey or figuring that out is that something traumatic or sad or just unfortunate happens before that to kind of make us see how that system really works and how
mm,
they really do handle things. So it is unfortunate that it does happen that way, but also like you said, like it does leave us feeling a little bit grateful because it's like, well, if it would have happened where you didn't have the miscarriage and you did have the birth in the hospital, would that have been more traumatic for you? You don't
mm,
know. So it does leave us feeling a little bit grateful that something unfortunate did happen to maybe lead us down the path that we needed to go. So I think that is really beautiful as well. Was there something that made you think about home birth, not just the situation that happened and like seeing the system, how they worked, but was there anyone who kind of brought it up or a story that you heard, anything like that, that kind of was like, oh, maybe that's the route I want to go to?
Yeah, I read a book about hypnobirthing, and
Oh,
there was just something about that. I didn't end up uh, ultimately for me, the method didn't really work, but there was a book that I read that just it explained the anatomy and physiology of birth, and something about that totally clicked in my mind, and I was like,
mm,
I can do this. Like my body
mhm,
is made to do this, and I don't need medication or like it just made it seem approachable. And prior
mhm,
to that, I would say I was terrified. If you had asked me even like 2 years ago, would you ever consider home birth? I would be like, absolutely not.
mhm,
Are you
mhm,
crazy? But it just totally shifted my perspective, learning about what the body goes through during that process, and specifically seeing the uterus contracting in the different ways of the muscle fiber overlapping, like how it I'm not a birth worker, so I'm more in the postpartum sphere. So I'm sorry if this is wrong, but there's vertical and there's horizontal muscle fibers, so they contract in different ways, right? So
mhm,
um just seeing that totally shifted my perspective. And I was like, wow, well, my body's gonna do this with or without me, so I should probably get on board.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, it was just really empowering. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, yes, I
Mhm,
can. So that was awesome to have
mhm,
that experience, and then just sort of it all trickled down from there. I read a lot more. I read Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, and that was really empowering as well. And reading it led me into listening to more home birth stories and birth stories, and seeing what could be possible and beautiful about the process and less
mhm,
intervention. Ultimately, being in a hospital environment really scared me, and I felt that I wouldn't feel safe there.
mhm,
Just personally, I know that people can have very positive hospital births unmedicated if they choose to, but for me, after my miscarriage and just the real lack of nurture and care I experienced there, and really having to advocate for myself in a time of vulnerability, really
mhm,
showed me a lot about what birth could be, and it scared me. So that ultimately led me down the home birth route.
mhm,
And I changed my decision rather, I would say kind of late in the game. So I was seeing an OB up to right up before, I would say like 28 weeks. So right up
okay.
before they do the glucose test. And then I was talking with my doula, who I had hired maybe like 5 weeks along. I hadn't even signed up with her right away because I knew that I wanted to work with this particular person. Yeah, so I chose to work with a doula, and I went to her at like 26 or some odd weeks, and I said,
Mhm,
hey, I'm thinking about home birth. Do you have any recommendations? And she was like, whoa, I didn't know you were thinking about that, but very
mhm,
cool. And gave me a bunch of recommendations for midwives in my area. And we ended up transferring care to a home birth midwife in
mhm,
Massachusetts here, and had my prenatal visits at home, which was really awesome to have somebody come and just be with me at home in the evening with me and my husband and our animals, and just get to know us. Like
mhm,
the one-on-one care was really exceptional and very different from the OB office, where you never know who you're going to see,
mhm.
or who's going to be at your birth, which kind
Yeah,
of stressed me out too. I was like, I don't know which one of these people I may or may not have clicked with them, who's going to be there on the day, this very important time for me. So that was another factor too, I'd say, like knowing who was going to be at my birth. And yeah.
yeah, definitely. That's a big factor that I think a lot of people will go to home birth for is because they figure out, oh, my OB that I've had this whole time might not actually be at my birth. They might not be the one who's going to be there, and it might be some complete stranger who I never met before who is there during this most vulnerable experience that I'm ever going to go through. And it's just going to be a random person that walks in. So I think that appeals to a lot of people with home birth too. And
Mm.
that was something that also affected me with my home birth was that I ended up dropping my midwife just because she was in a like midwifery care group and they had a bunch of midwives and I had only met every midwife one time and I didn't feel like I knew anybody
Mhm.
because they all had just been like, oh, here's one midwife, here's another midwife, here's another one. And then same thing with them. It was like, you don't know who's coming to your birth. It's whoever is on call that day.
Mhm.
And so I didn't really like that. So for me, I think I love midwifery care where it is just one person. And like, obviously, it's good for her to have a backup
Mhm.
because things do come up, things do happen where it's like maybe she can't make it that day, maybe an emergency came up. And it's good to have that backup there, but it's so much better to have that continuity of care where it's just the same person that you've known your whole pregnancy there at
Mhm.
your birth. Like that, there's something so beautiful about that, and also so comforting where you feel more safe and at peace during your labor because you know this person so well. So
Mhm.
I do really love that form of care and getting that. And I think home birth is really one of the only ways to make sure that you kind of can get that because in the hospital, there's really, unless it's maybe a family member who's like your OB and you could call them and be like, I know you're not on call, but can you come in?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the only way that it would really happen. So, yeah, it
Mm.
makes sense that that's kind of what you were looking for. And that was one thing that kind of kept you out of the system as well.
Mhm.
Was there anyone in like your family or anybody close to you who heard that you were changing your mind and kind of had any pushback or just had some things to say?
Yeah, I think so. It took my husband, he not a long time, but he was definitely like, let's he's an engineer, so he needs hard facts, right? And
Hmm.
we had a lot of conversations about it. It wasn't, I wouldn't say a difficult decision because he's very supportive and he wanted me to feel safe. So I'm so grateful for that. But in the beginning, he was like, "Are you crazy? Like, what are these pregnancy hormones doing to you?" You know? But yeah, and we kept it kind of close to the vest a little bit too with family members. Like I told my close family that I knew would be supportive and I think they held back a lot too. But I just explained that this is home is where I felt safe and that I felt I could progress naturally at home and I felt really confident in my team and my support and yeah, so I wouldn't say too much pushback, but I would say I really kept it close because I
Mhm.
didn't want that interfering in my space. I didn't want to hear any negativity. So, and I knew there were some people that might offer that to me. So I didn't share with very many people.
Mhm.
And I don't think my husband did either. So, so when the baby was born, they're all like, "Oh, he's not in a hospital bed. He's he's at home already. What's going on there?" And we were like, "Yeah, he was born at home at blah 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 11:13 p.m. or whatever time it was."
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun. It was a fun little surprise when it actually
Hmm.
came to fruition.
Yeah. I think people have less to say about it once it's already happened
Yeah.
than what they would say if it's kind of something you're telling them beforehand. So, yeah, that's really good advice for anyone who's like listening and is planning their first home birth, doesn't know if they should share. It is really important to kind of gauge if sharing with certain people might be less beneficial for you and just bring in more fear, more anxiety, more
Mm.
of those kind of negative thoughts about the what ifs or all of those things that you already probably worried about at once and then maybe have gotten over. And then somebody else is bringing those back in again. So it is
Mhm.
important to make sure you're kind of feeling out who you're sharing the information with, who you maybe don't want to share the information with, and keeping it close if that's what's best for you.
Definitely. I'd also like to add, I when I was searching for stories and planning my birth, I didn't hear very many birthing people discuss about home birth as their first birth. It was more like
Mm,
a second or third time, like, I'm going for this, I'm going for home birth now. But I really wanted to hear, I crave those stories where it was your first birth and you're just going into it. You're doing home birth right away. And I wanted to know why. So I think that's another reason why I'm excited to share today with other people that are considering it as their first birth right out the gate. I think
hmm
that's it's a, for whatever reason, it's exciting and good for you
Yeah,
for just going in and going with your gut and feeling comfortable.
hmm definitely. For going into the labor, was there anything that was leading up to labor that maybe kind of is important for the birth that you want to touch on, or did it just kind of start off with your labor going?
I was 40 weeks and 2 days, I think, when I went into labor. Those last few weeks, I was just like, let's get this baby going. And I was so done. I was just, I gave birth in June of last year. So it was starting to get kind of warm and that due date's approaching and you're just like, okay, it's really hard to, I know the due date is not when the baby comes necessarily, but it's really hard not to focus on that date your entire pregnancy, even
Hmm
though it's so rare when a baby comes on the due date. I was like, oh, May 31st, I'm due May 31st. Baby's coming around May 31st. So just the lead up to that in my mind, it was such a mental game.
Yeah.
Um, but once the due date passed, I was like, okay, whatever, now I have no date in mind. So yeah, so leading up, I guess I was just I finally relaxed after May 31st passed, and a few days later, my labor started just slowly in the middle of the night. I think at 8 o'clock, we had gone out to dinner for like spicy Chinese food or something. And there was a woman actually at the restaurant who looked at my big belly and just came up and touched me. I'm not weird about that. I know some people are, but she came up and she touched me. It was like, he's coming soon. I was like,
Mm.
okay, cool. I hope so. And he did that night. A couple hours later, my labor started really slowly. I'd say 10 minutes apart, contractions, like period cramps, but you feel them building and receding. So that happened all night long, and I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. So I just laid there, and then I remember getting up a few times. I think I ended up watching some TV on the couch. I got in the
Mhm.
shower, but it wasn't really intensifying overnight. It was just kind of staying the same. And I'd say for anyone in those beginning times, like, don't track that. I was like, oh, I should start writing this down because is this it? I don't know. This is my first time. So it's really hard not to pay attention to that because you're just I was excited. I was just
Yeah.
ready to go. And yeah, so the morning came and the contractions hadn't stopped. And they slowly started to pick up a little bit. And I was checking in with my husband while he was sleeping. I didn't want to wake him up because I needed him to be ready and communicate with our team and all of that. So at about 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. that day, we got in touch with everyone just to say, hey, this is what's happening. And I'm not sure how close they were together at that point. I'd say 7 or 8. They were getting closer around that time at 11 a.m. on June 1st, June 2nd, June 2nd. So I went into labor on June 1st at 8 o'clock at night. I labored all
Mm.
night long, just very early labor, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then around midday the following day, it really kicked into more of an active labor.
Mm.
So our midwife came over at 11 a.m. to check on me just to see how things were going and listen. And I was still like happy, excited, communicating. And she said I could either take Benadryl or to take a nap or kick things into high gear, which I didn't know at the time, like that's something that they recommend, to
Mhm.
you could fall asleep or whatever. So I don't think I took that right away. It was about 1 o'clock. She came back and things were still progressing slowly. I'm sitting in my bedroom right now, where a lot of my laboring happened. So I'm like
Mm.
looking into my bathroom. I spent a lot of time in my bathroom just bracing myself on the vanity and pacing back and forth. She, anyway, we're back to 11 a.m. ish. And she said to like go for a walk, get things moving, rest if you can. And I think I walked down to, we have a garden down the hill a little ways, and that felt really hard to do. I was like, I don't know if I could get back up the hill after going to just walk about a little bit. So I came back into the house. I was like, I need to be in the house. I need to be safe and close to
Yeah.
where I plan to give birth. So I came back in and slowly made my way back up and back into my bathroom and just kind of moved around from the birth ball to the shower. And at 1 o'clock, things seemed to pick up a little bit. I was getting a little deeper and more internal. And I think around that time, everyone showed up. So we had our main midwife, her name is Kim, and Sarah, the backup midwife. So they work in a team of two. I guess she's not a backup midwife because she was there the whole time. And my doula, Megan, all came at 1 o'clock. And then I got really emotional because I was like, oh my God, they're all here. This is
Hmm.
happening. This is real. Baby's coming. And just
Yeah.
excited, but happy tears, I'd say. And so at that time, I plugged in with my and I don't know why I'm really anti headphones that just clip into your ears, but I am for some reason. I feel like I'm going to lose one. So I was attached to my phone and I started playing just wave sounds. I don't know why, but I
Mm-hmm.
did. I think I had watched a Instagram video or something of some parent that had done that, and she said I just plugged in and listened to the waves the entire time just to focus. But I really
Yeah.
found it helpful. It just kind of cut out everything else, even though everyone was really respectful of my little laboring bubble in my bathroom. Yeah, so it was 1 o'clock. The whole team was here. I was listening to the waves, like rocking around. I ended up listening to the waves connected to my phone. I muted everything because I didn't want to see anything coming through, but I, for some reason, was just like, I need to be connected to these waves the whole time. So I ended up listening to that pretty much up until the end,
Mm.
until baby came. It was around then that I think at 1 o'clock when I said, can we have the pool? It was starting to get a little intense. I needed some more relief. So come to find out afterwards that our hot water died halfway through
Mm.
filling up the pool, and then my
Yeah.
husband and midwives and doula were boiling water on the stove, which is very common.
Mm-hmm.
And they're carrying it. Our bedroom's on the second floor, so they're boiling pots and carrying it upstairs, and I'm just like
Oh.
standing in the shower without hot water, wondering when can I get in the pool? Like I had
Yeah.
no, I'm in labor land now at 1 o'clock. I'm just like gone or around there sometime in the afternoon. I start to lose sort of track of time at this point, even though labor would go on for another about 10 hours for me.
Mm.
I was just kind of rocking it, grooving. I'd say until about 4 or 5 o'clock that night, it was good. It wasn't pain for me. It was a little intense, but it was something that my body and brain could really get around. I wasn't stressed or anything like that. I was just kind of like, okay, we're doing this. It feels
Mm-hmm.
doable. And around 4 or 5 o'clock, I don't know how long I would have been laboring at that point, almost 24 hours. I was getting a little discouraged and tired, and
Yeah.
I needed a relief, so my doula and I walked out of our room and down the hall, and she was like, "Let's do some stairs to see if that moves things along." And I ended up agreeing to a cervical check at that point just because I needed some reassurance. And my plan going in was not to have any, just because I kind of trusted that my body would do this on its own. But I wasn't totally anti cervical check either. I was just like, if I need it, I'll ask for it. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
kept the door open. So I was 7 to 8 centimeters at that point, 4 or 5 o'clock, 20 hours in, which was really reassuring to me. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
transition is right around the corner. Here we go. And I think that that was pretty true. So I was in and out of the tub and really feeling it at that point. I think around like 6 to 8, I started to feel pushy. Like it felt like my body was bearing down and it was getting really intense. But the water, the pool was just the best thing going. It was awesome. So cool. Just really took the edge off and relaxed me and gave me a chance to rest. So I was also squeezing a comb the entire time.
Mm, mhm,
Most of the time near the end there, I was just, I think I had two, one in each hand. Because the
mhm.
day after I looked at my hands and they were like cracked up in here.
Uh,
But I really just needed to grip something. And in the tub, it felt like I wasn't really stable. It was more of a, I think it slowed things down a little bit for me in the tub.
mm,
I felt like he wasn't coming, like the contractions weren't coming as fast when I was in the tub there.
yeah.
Um, so at some point near like 9 or 10, near the end, when I was starting to feel pushy and really wanting baby to come down and just be done because I was exhausted,
Mhm,
we tried out sitting on the toilet, which was really tough, and the
mhm.
birthing stool, which was also really tough. I did a contraction or two there, and I was like, this is super intense. I remember saying a lot, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. But I also knew when I was saying that was a marker of transition as well. I was like, this, okay, baby's coming soon, but also, whoa, this is really intense. This is really
Yeah.
intense. And in fact, like I had to write my birth story the following day just to get it out of me and remember what I felt early on, because the way I
Mhm.
feel about it now is very different. But the following day I was like, to be honest, don't ever let me do this again. Because it was painful. It was. And I think there was something that shifted for me after that, like moving and grooving time of the first 20 hours where I was like exhausted and it was painful. I
Mhm.
mean, I'll be honest, for me, it was painful. And I think that that was my fear response. I was just like clamping down. I was like, I couldn't open up
Yeah.
the way I needed to. The way I think about it now is like, I needed to relax into those contractions and I was getting tense. So if I'm lucky enough to do it again, I have some different things I might try.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it was getting tough. I was tired. Eventually, we moved out of the tub onto our bed and I was bracing. I was like leaning on my left hip and using my midwives as like a brace for my legs
Mm,
with every contraction that came. And I didn't intend to have some help with pushing near the end there, but I was tired and I did need some help with
mhm.
how to push him out. So I ended up pushing for what they said was 3 hours,
Mm,
but I think a lot of that time was spent on the birthing stool, the toilet, like trying to get him down, but actively like pushing, like coached pushing, I did for I don't know because my mind's gone, but maybe about an hour max. Not, I
mhm.
don't know. I have no clue. But yeah, so I had holding somebody's hand behind my head, laying on the bed and like squeezing with the comb with my other hand and just like really screaming too. I didn't
Mhm.
like deep moaning, like primal stuff,
Yeah.
which now I'm like, that's so cool. But I think I scared my husband in the moment. He told me afterwards that he was like, he's very squeamish also. So he
Mm.
got sick several times throughout my labor and the delivery. He was there while my son was, emerging. But yeah, so I pushed quite a bit, and at 11:13 on the same contraction, because there's like three waves in a contraction, or I don't really remember exactly, but that's three, the number three stands out. His head came out, and on the same contraction, like there was a little break between. I just shot him right out. He just like came right out, and I'm laying down, and I was just like the relief afterwards. It was so much relief. It was just
Mhm.
like the head came out, and I just couldn't wait. I just had to. I just had to do it. I was like, I'm going. There was no pausing, and I had read all about, the right thing to do, which is really like breathe into it after the head comes down, and let the baby like wait another contraction to then get the rest of his body out. But I couldn't, I was just like, nope, we're going. We're doing this thing.
Yeah.
So I did have a little bit of a tear, but no stitching, so that was fine. And his cord was pretty short, so he could only make it up to my stomach a little bit, and I was laying down and my arms were so tired from bracing every time I had a contraction that it was really hard to hold him. So after 27 hours of labor, my son was born and
Hmm.
it was just really cool. It was awesome. It was such an amazing experience, but right afterwards I was just like so tired. It was hard. I didn't have that like, "Oh my God, I love you. I know you." As
Hmm.
soon as I saw him, I was just tired and sore and bleeding and all of the things that follow birth. So, yeah. But he was perfect. He started crying right away. He cried for a while. We were skin to skin for hours, like at least 2 hours. And his, with, I don't know exactly what they do in the hospital in terms of cord cutting, but he was attached to the placenta for quite some time and allowed to fully drain the placenta, the placental line or the cord. And yeah, it was such a cool, quiet, sweet time afterwards. Just
Hmm.
like the three of us and the birth team here. My doula took some photos and it was fun. It was not fun. I don't know why I'm saying fun, but it happened. Like in my mind now, the hormones are crazy. The postpartum hormones, just nuts because like I've said before, like the immediately after birth, I was definitely shaken up and like, whoa, what just happened? Because you come back into your
Yeah.
body, like immediately after it's all over, I was like, oh, I'm here now. And that was a lot. And it was a lot.
Yeah.
But as the days went on and the oxytocin's flowing, I'm like, oh, that was so beautiful and wonderful. And if I ever have a chance to do it again, I'll do it the exact same way. That's how
Uh-huh.
I feel today. Like that was birth, man.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I really think that that's intentional too, for us
Mm,
to kind of feel all of that, and then our brain kind of like changes it into, no,
yes.
it wasn't that bad. I actually can do
Yes.
this again. Because I think if we always had this idea that, like, oh my gosh, that was horrible, that was painful, I never want to do that again, and that never goes away, we probably are not going to keep reproducing
Hmm.
and we wouldn't want to. So I think that's so intentional, just like the way that our hormones work and our brain works, to kind of put that to a different perspective right away, as to like, oh, I can do this again. And I do want to do it again. Even though it
Hmm.
was hard, I know it was hard, I could do it again. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's really cool that we kind of have that experience.
Definitely. Yeah, the brain is so amazing and the body I've never felt better in my body after giving birth. I've never felt I'm not in the immediate after, postpartum period. I was kind of like, whoa, what happened here? But I think as time has gone on, I've never felt more secure in my body or proud of what it was able to accomplish
Hmm.
or like just confident in myself and my ability to do anything. Like I did that, I can do anything.
Hmm.
It's just such a gift to be able to make life, I think, and
Hmm.
deliver it into the world. Like
Yeah.
mind blown, mind blown.
Yeah,
It's
it
so
really is.
cool.
Hmm.
So cool. So that's kind of where I stand on it today. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I did that. And
Hmm.
that's awesome. What a gift to both of us too. Just such a cool story for him. I think about him all the time. Like, what is my son gonna say to his friends someday? Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, when I was I don't know, or like it's what 1 or 2% of births happen at home. So it's
Hmm.
such a rare thing and so cool. I hope he thinks it's cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that is cool that they get to grow up, babies that are like born at home or born into this world, and kind of bring that out a little bit more because I don't think growing up I ever knew anyone say my sisters were born at home or I had
Mm,
my sibling born or I never knew anyone who was born at home. So I think it's really cool that now that it's becoming more of a thing, even though it is still a low percentage, it is
mhm,
becoming more normalized and it's happening more often just because women are kind of realizing you don't always need to go into the hospital system for birth. Like it's not always a medical emergency. Most of the time, it's just a natural process that's going to happen. And
mhm.
so that's really cool that a lot of these babies are now going to grow up and bring that into their generation, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I hope it creates kind of like you said, like a trickle down effect and its birth is perceived as more normal again, like it was, I don't know, a century ago. So yeah, I didn't know anybody either that had had a home birth. I met actually wildly like one mom in a prenatal group that was planning a home birth as well. So that was really fun to see her and see her baby and kind of talk a little bit about the experience. It was super cool. But yeah, it's definitely a rarity and it kind of creates, I felt a little isolated. I was like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I wish I knew more people that have similar thoughts about the medicalization of birth and just, yeah, in general. So, but it was such a, I don't know. Now I think it's like the coolest thing I've ever done. I do. Either way, I think I would feel that if I was in a hospital too, I think, and I had a positive experience, I think I would feel like it was still, it's the coolest thing I've ever done,
Hmm.
giving birth.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
definitely. That's beautiful. I love how you did touch on during your birth story how there was a moment where it kind of became a long process and you were tired and exhausted and you did kind of let that fear and tension come in. And
Mhm.
for anyone who doesn't know, I just wanted to bring it up really quickly that there's actually something called the fear tension pain cycle and that will just kind of continue to make labor harder in a sense for you because it's just an ongoing cycle of you start to get that fear trickling in and you're either scared of something happening or scared of the pain that you're starting to feel and that fear will cause your body to tense up and when you are tensing up and not really relaxing your body you're going to have more pain that comes on because of that and the pain is only going to validate your fear, especially if your fear is this is getting painful. And so then it just continues on and it's a crazy cycle that will happen. So it is something to learn about, think about, figure out how you can manage that when you are in labor and figure out different like grounding techniques. Those are always my favorite to try to get a hold of that fear that's coming in is practice grounding techniques when you're pregnant and that way whenever you're in labor you can use those grounding techniques to bring you back to the idea of okay yeah this is not scary I can relax my body I don't have to get into that cycle and just like spiral down from there I can get out of this before it gets worse and it is hard to do it's not something that is easy to do at all it's not something you could just know and then be like oh I'm prepared I got it it is very hard especially if you are laboring for a long time
Mhm.
and if you haven't slept, if you haven't ate, if you are just so exhausted, it can be really hard to remember those things.
Mhm.
And that's why I really also advocate for having a doula there too, because doula can also try to help you come back to like those grounding techniques or bringing you back to knowing like how to relax, how to make yourself comfortable again, things like that. So that's a really big part of just like preparation that I would suggest to people who are planning.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had learned about that when I was pregnant, and I think I held it together for a little while, like you said.
Hmm.
Like, there's a point at which it just shifted for me, and I was tired and done, and
Hmm.
I think I lost control of all of the work that I had put in, and I was like, I just need this to I need him to come now. I need him
Yeah.
to be born.
Hmm.
So I definitely fell into the fear response for sure. So there's something that I will change if I'm lucky
Hmm.
enough to have another child. We'll see.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I something came to mind while you were saying that too. It's a little unrelated, but I guess immediate postpartum is something that I'd like to talk about as well if you're
Hmm.
open to it. Just
Yeah.
some things that I didn't know enough about. I spent a lot of time learning about birth and that really quick period, the birth happens. It's such an amazing, wonderful thing that we do, but postpartum is forever.
Hmm.
And that early period right after the baby's born, there's so much that's happening with you. Like you're producing milk for the baby, colostrum that's so important. Immediately afterwards, I remember like I don't think I ever heard about this, so I'm going to share it, but I had to pee so bad because I was hydrated. But it was
Mm.
so hard to pee right after delivering the baby that I was like in pain because I had to pee so bad. And my midwife and doula ended up putting peppermint oil in the toilet. And I guess that's something that they know about. You just, that brings it down. But my everything was so swollen that it was hard to get pee out. And you have to like retrain your brain to tell your urethra to open up and pee. I was
Hmm.
just like, I need to pee, I need to pee. Yeah, and once I did that, everything was better. But I remember distinctly that being so hard.
Hmm.
They gave me a shot of Pitocin to slow some bleeding because I had a little bit of that. Nothing, no hemorrhaging, just a little bit more bleeding than I think would be considered normal. After the
Hmm.
baby came, the placenta came out so easy, so easy. It was just like after you deliver bones, something without bones is just like whoosh, just
Yeah.
right out. I like hardly remember that even being there. And there's a baby on your chest, and you're like, oh, or your stomach or however long their cord is. And yeah, but the immediate postpartum period, there's a lot going on. Yeah, I'm currently studying to be a certified lactation counselor, and we
Okay.
just got through the section of skin to skin in that first hour and how important that is to initiate breastfeeding or chest feeding. And I've been thinking a lot about how I felt in that first hour and just everything that was going on with my body. And it's such an important time to initiate breastfeeding. So it was just a lot in my mind. The baby
Hmm.
goes through these 9 stages to ultimately latch or practice breastfeeding with the mom. And I hardly remember that time because I was in so
Yeah.
much, just like I was so tired and the midwives are checking me out down there, making sure that everything's good, and they have to go in and scrape out any clots that you may have, and just honestly a little bit of pain afterwards too. So especially if you tear, there's a lot to consider. There's a lot going on for the birthing person after birth, and the more support, the better, truly.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of, I guess, brings me to what I'm working towards today, which is lactation counseling, like I said, and
Hmm.
postpartum doula. And with my background as a chef, I have worked with postpartum clients in the past and giving them nourishing meals and stuff like that, but I'm kind of tailoring my business more towards postpartum people and families. So that's really exciting because there's so
Yeah.
much you really need to be nurtured and supported, and there's never too much support, I think.
Hmm.
It's a lot. It's a lot to go through, and you need the support in order to care for your little one or little ones.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm hopeful that someday when I'm not focused on my little guy too, I'm able to offer that to
Hmm.
uh, parents and families.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. I definitely think, yeah, there's never too much support. And also, I don't think there is enough support out there either, just
Mm.
because we've gone so far away from the whole having a village and having a community and having all of this. And we've kind of become accustomed to don't talk about needing help, don't ask for help. You need to do it all yourself. You need to be like the sole person who is holding everything down. And I think that's really just become like ingrained in a lot of our brains as to like, we have to do this alone. Like, that's what we have
Mm,
to do. And also, it's hard for us to ask for help because we've always been told it should just be us.
mhm,
And not even only told, I think it's just like watching it growing up and hearing things on like movies, TV shows about like the mom is responsible for taking care of the kid and that's like our sole responsibility. So
mm,
that's what we have to do. And it's now hard for us to like go back to no, we actually do need a support system and a village and people there to help. It's not only on us to do every single thing, especially if we have other children and we just had a new baby. Like, we
mm,
can't do everything all at once during that immediate postpartum and recovery and healing. We need people who are there to support us. And I just don't think it's there enough. So I always love to hear that like new birth workers are coming in as a postpartum doula or postpartum just anything because there is so much support that is needed
mm.
still for women.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you can prepare a lot for the birth, but postpartum really needs to be considered as well. And it it's equally, if not more important than preparing for birth, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Just having those support systems in place and people that are there to care for your additional children while and care for you while you're bonding with the new baby and learning how to feed them the way that you'd like to feed them and recovering because it's
Mm-hmm.
such a process. I think we talk about the first 6 weeks, but really postpartum is forever. And I'm I'm like 10 and a half months out, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm just coming back into my body, into my being, and getting to know who I am now.
Mm-hmm.
It changes all the time. I think I read somewhere that at 2 years, you're really back to who you feel. Like internally, you feel like you're more yourself, but so much has changed, right? And that's
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah. And I can
It's,
so vouch for that too, because
yeah.
my babies have all been less than 2 years apart. And
Mm,
so I never got that full 2 year postpartum experience of just like, okay, I'm fully past that postpartum now. And
yeah.
with my third baby, I was really adamant about giving myself a break because I didn't have those breaks before. So I was actually able to make it to that 2 year mark without being pregnant again, without having another baby. And it was so true. I passed that 2 year mark and I was like, wow, I feel like a different person, like completely different than how I felt the last almost 6 years of being
Oh my
pregnant and
goodness.
breastfeeding. And yeah, it was a long journey of
Yeah.
nonstop pregnancy, breastfeeding. I never stopped breastfeeding.
Mm,
I just kept to like continue with the next baby and the next baby.
yeah.
And so when she hit two, I weaned and I was not pregnant, not breastfeeding, not anything. And I just felt so like, wow, I'm past that postpartum phase. Like, I don't feel like I'm in postpartum anymore for
Yeah.
once in my life.
Oh my
So
goodness.
postpartum is a really long journey. And I think people are so stuck on that 6 week mark because that's what the
Mm,
hospital has put it at and what like careers and jobs have put as like you need 6 weeks and then you come back type of thing.
mm,
And so we're just stuck on that number of like, no, we only need 6 weeks and then we're out of it. No, it's so much longer than that.
mm. Absolutely. Yeah. It's evolving all the time. It's like
Mhm.
just, I only know my experience, right? So I'm like, today's good. I feel embodied and whole. And then you don't sleep well, or I don't know. There's just so much change happening all the time. And I, I'm a first timer, so I'm just learning all the time, just
Mhm.
going with the flow. Like, no 2 days are the same. And yeah, it's learning to be patient and all of these things.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a beautiful journey, but it is a crazy journey as well.
It is, and it's constant. The constancy is something that I did not know about there's so many things I didn't know about before having a baby, but like just the constancy for sure is it's hard. It's a hard adjustment for anybody that's been like anyone for anyone. It's just I was gonna say for anyone that's like a career person or I think it's hard for anyone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Where can people find you if they would like to follow you on this journey of postpartum work and all of that?
They can find me at Postpartum Nurture Co. on Instagram and postpartumnurture.com. I'm not quite taking clients yet because I'm still waiting to go through my DONA International Postpartum Doula certification next month and then certify after that. But if anybody would like meals in the greater Boston area, central Massachusetts, I'm here for that or just a conversation. I love to talk to new parents or anyone that's pregnant about their plans, their birth stories. I love birth stories. I'm here to listen. So, yeah, just thank you. And I look forward to speaking with anyone that comes my way. And hopefully, I can be a resource. Any questions? I'm still learning and in my education process myself, but I have a 10 and a half month old. So I've got a little bit of life experience, I guess, learning all the time. Yeah. Hopefully, this was beneficial to some people to share my story. And thank you, Esmeralda, for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was great having you on. I'm so glad you got to share your story with us and all of the little wisdom that you've learned as a first-time mom and going through that experience.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
As a doula, I serve women who want to have a physiological and intuitive birth. Women who are ready to take radical responsibility for their birth and want to be the authority in their birth. This is not a job or career for me. This is much bigger, something deeper. This is soul work, my ultimate passion, because I trust women and I trust birth. I have both in-person and virtual offerings available, including birth services, birth circles, courses, mentorships, freebies, and much more. For more information on everything that I offer, the link is down below in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd love for you to share with any family or friends who may benefit from these stories and experiences. To further support this podcast, I'd appreciate if you would leave a 5-star rating and review, or you can even make a loving donation on my website at birthsathome.com/products/podcast-donation. Tune in next week for another home birth story.